I'm blessed. I'm blessed. Thanks for asking. Just finished up reintegrating a few different things with Pipedrive. That's going to be our CRM of choice, at least for the next couple months. So just aligned a few different things with that.
Well, dude, that's awesome, man. Well, okay, why don't we take the first couple of minutes? I'll run you through Marketplace, kind of where it's at now, where it's going. And then, yeah, dude, then I think I want to see some of the stuff you built and see how
Yeah,
you work together.
100%.
So let me share my screen here. All right, you seeing this? Here, let me go to the front end. This thing
Yeah.
that says Justin on it.
Yep.
Okay, so a lot of what I've been doing the last 6 months is going to change here in the next few weeks. Have you ever logged into Marketplace?
No, so I that's actually one of the reasons I wanted to connect was my login doesn't seem to be working. So I'll call legacy support and try and get in touch with Isaiah.
What
And try and
okay, so just hey, try it right now while we're on the phone, just on your phone or iPad. Just go to legacy-marketplace.com and then use the same username and password that you use when you try to log into Grid.
Okay.
I'm just wondering if it will pull up an error called a server 500 or a server 505.
Let's see. It's just not even letting me in.
Will you text me the username and password that you're using? I'll get it over to the programmer. It's supposed to sync to panel, and for some reason, it's like working for like 98% of people, but I had to do a guy yesterday, another guy in Seth Granny's region, where I don't know what the programmers do, but they work their magic, then all of a sudden it works where you can log in. So
Yeah,
I'll
100%.
get that fixed for you, dude. I apologize that's not working. That's annoying.
Yeah, it's all good. Let me see. So I'm gonna text it to you right now.
All right, I'm going to send this over to the programmer. Just give me 1 second.
Yeah, so now it's working for me, but it says server error 500.
Okay, so it did do a server error 5. Okay, let me just text Andy. Okay, he's looking into that right now. Hopefully by the end of this call, he's got it fixed.
Got it.
Okay, so I'll show you, I'll give you a little run through. Well, one, it's going to become a little bit obsolete because what's going to happen is on Canvas, we want to have another little button down at the bottom that's appointments, and click on that, and then have it be something similar to what what you're seeing here, where it says Justin Yoon. Actually, the look and feel of it will be better. Um, but I don't think there's going to be anything under you. I'm going to go in and search for Daniel Lynch.
I actually think while we're here, I actually believe I have two names in there, which is not good.
Oh, like you've got
Like
two
my
user
yeah,
profiles.
yeah, because what I was just over in Phoenix for a few days and had some people setting leads for myself, and it was
Oh, dude, so there's nothing in Marketplace. So yeah, if they're setting leads on the doors, right now those live in Canvas, which is separate than Marketplace, but here
got
really quickly we're going to integrate them together.
got it.
Um, but I guess the thing to know is where this becomes applicable is if your guys are wanting to ever purchase any appointments, which I probably would discourage at this point, knowing what we're doing. But we do have this form. Have I ever showed you this form?
I've seen it, but if you could forward, just copy and paste and forward that to me.
Yeah. And if you ever want to find it, if you go under Canvas, more and documents, there's a little thing, there's a link there that says order exclusive appointments. Um, that's just another place where it will always be. I'm
Okay,
just going to send this to you though right now, just so you have
got it.
it.
And so, like, how does that work? Isn't there minimum 5?
Yeah, minimum's 5. I've got like 8 or 9 different lead sources that I use. What happens is a guy will fill one of these out, and then I always call them and consult them, right? So let's say hypothetically somebody in the Nomads region filled one out. They got 5 in Florida or Texas. I'm just making it up, right?
Right.
Me or Brody will call them up and just say, hey, let's talk through this. What are your objectives? What are you trying to, get from this? We'll try to manage expectations. We'll tell them about different lead opportunities we have. We have some that are less expensive, around 200 to 250 an appointment. But the things that kind of suck with those ones is they're not replaceable, meaning you take a little bit of risk, right? Like you buy 5, if one person just no shows, then it's like, sorry, you're out of luck, But
Yeah.
we've got other guys where it's more expensive. They're around like 450, 500, but they're replaceable, meaning you're only paying if you get to sit and present to that customer. And we found that more guys are typically happier on that, but we like to give reps the option to kind of see where they want to be. And anyway, we figure something out. We figure out a price. A lot of times it might be a little bit different than what's on this little form. And then we send them an invoice through invoice.com, and then they'll receive it and they can pay ACH to their bank account, or just like, put in their credit card and pay that way. That triggers them in the system to start receiving appointments. We have to kind of flip them on to have them see that.
Right. Right. Right.
Oh, it looks like Brian just jumped on.
How's it going, Brian?
Hey, how's it going, guys?
What is
How you doing
happening?
today? I was on my Zoom link. I was on the wrong Zoom chat.
Totally good, brother. So we're actually just touching and going over a little bit about like this. So this is Legacy's marketplace. This is where they can actually purchase, like just they can actually come in and purchase appointments. And then John was actually just mentioning that some of these areas that you can actually get, let's say you purchase an appointment, that guy doesn't or girl doesn't show up to that appointment, then you can actually get another one given to you. And those are a little bit more expensive versus some that are just like, for example, $200 to $250 each. That if you purchase it, it's an actual hot lead that was just given, but it's not 100% sure that you can get in. So go ahead, John.
Yeah, so here in Baltimore, you'll see I have 2 prices. 315 is with one of my lead sources that doesn't replace them, but if they're paying 410, those are going to be the ones that are replaceable. Denver, I've got 2 different price points, Greenville. So it just kind of, this is just a work in progress, but it's going to completely go away. The the good and the bad thing that we've discovered from this is when guys swipe their own card, they've got ownership in it, and I feel like their closing rates are higher. Well, they are. Statistically, I can go pull data and look at it, and for sure the guys paying for these are closing better. But it's kind of a pain in the butt. It's leading to some unanticipated frustrations with commissions where sometimes it's a confusing thing of, no, that's a lead I paid for. Why are you clawing back 35% for my commissions? Because in some of these areas, I go buy in bulk to get a better price point. And if I have excess leads, I've got to send them somewhere, right? So I usually identify a manager or a top closer in a market. And in the back end, I can kind of designate and say, hey, if I don't have a purchasing rep, my algorithm looks at it and says, oh, okay, where's the best fit person to assign it to? And it'll assign it to that person. But I don't like it. I don't like the system where we're clawing back, we're doing stuff. And so we're moving to a system where we're going to stop buying so many leads. We're going to start cultivating our own. We've got our own call center now that are basically just going to get an appointment on a silver platter and push it out to the rep and say, here it is. But if you take this, you're only making this flat rate commission. And what we've talked about is $400 a kilowatt at a 380 red line. If they can go sell it for more, they get to keep the gravy. If they end up selling it for less, then it's going to be like a 50-50 commission split with the company. So that's part of what we're transitioning to, and that will live on Canvas versus how the marketplace exists today.
Got it.
Can I have a copy of this link here, just to have as reference?
Yeah, for
I-
sure.
yeah,
You-
I've got it. I'm just gonna
Okay.
shoot it out. He just sent it to me. I asked for that. I just texted it to you.
Okay.
Yeah, I know, and I'm sure, Danny, you've got various lead sources and stuff that you've got, and I think with your set, like how aggressive you guys are hiring setters. I mean, dude, you know this. That's for sure a lower cost way of doing it, right? If you can go get 4 or 5 guys out there setting for you as a closer or any of your other closers, kicking those guys 200 a kilowatt or whatever you do to take care of them, it seemed to be a pretty good way of doing it. So we just want to supplement that and people that are self-genning.
Right.
We don't want this to ever be something that guys are totally relying on, where they just get lazy and they're sitting at home or sitting on their butt and just saying, legacy, where are my leads at today? Like, hook me up, like that's not really the purpose of the marketplace. It's more just that cherry on top where if we can push a lead out to a guy, the way that I talk with Doug and Luke about it is if it's a 10 o'clock meeting, it gets them out to area, it gets them out of their car. If they go in, if they close it, they're kind of in their mojo, they're excited, they'll go knock the neighbors, and hopefully since they're out there, they'll go generate some more business that way.
Absolutely. And just to kind of and from the perspective of just kind of where we've come from, it's obviously the people who have the track record are willing to close, and even down to, I mean, this is probably definitely not how it's done with a lot of teams in legacy, but like for a lot of canvassers and appointment setters that I've worked with, is just to incentivize them is there's 2 different ways. So very similar to this, a lot of people in sales are kind of cash broke, and or wanting to get in sales can be cash broke. And so I've found we've launched a model recently where, let's say, hey, my name's Danny. I'm gonna go. I live in Southern California. If I knock a door, get a U-bill, set an appointment, and it actually sits, then myself or Trey will actually Venmo that setter $200 the same day. And
Oh, dude,
and
immediate
yeah,
pay.
immediate
That's cool.
pay. only if it sits. So it's almost a step up from something like this, because you're, as a closer, I'm getting it if it sits down, if I have the utility bill, if they filled out the form on Canvas, then like I'm of course I would buy it just like I would buy it on this form, except it's guaranteed. And if for some reason it doesn't sit, maybe it wasn't a good appointment, Mr. Setter, and then so he doesn't get paid for that. But if I know that when I was first getting in started in canvassing, if I could have just, I loved being on the doors. It was so much fun. If, and like I just, which is probably not the experience for most people, but is to, if I could have set 3 appointments in a day, like I'm taking my girlfriend out to dinner, I just made $600. Like that's not a bad day. And it's
Yep.
guaranteed. And then there was another $250 kickback after it got installed. So there was another little chunk of change that came and followed up.
Dude, that's a great way to do it, man. I like that. I like that method.
Yeah.
It'd be a little bit tricky for Legacy to try to implement something like that as an entity, but I think it's super smart, you know.
Yeah, with management, I mean, it could be because I mean, if I'm gonna go to Legacy Marketplace and try and buy a lead like this, it definitely makes sense because these aren't necessarily guaranteed to sit, and a lot of them don't come with a utility bill, and
Yep.
so it's just it's a really good model, definitely for management. Uh,
Yeah. I
but
would
It's paper
almost,
show. It's paper show instead of paper lead.
exactly.
yep,
Yep.
so much more effective. Dude, you have a good thing going, Danny. I mean, it's weird. I probably wouldn't use this marketplace as it currently is, but I do hope to start generating some and having these virtual closes where if my website's generating leads in areas that I don't have teams, I'd love to send those to the nomads, right? Just because you guys
100%.
are good. You guys know how to close like on a virtual appointment, which is different, you know, like some guys that are really, really good on the doors aren't necessarily really, really good over Zoom. I think they can get there, but it's a little bit of a different skill set to get that commitment, get them to sign the DocuSign stuff, and still get installs that way. So I want to be highly selective as we start cultivating these to just be sending them to the right closer where I'm making a return on Legacy's money, you know?
Exactly.
And I think that you and some of your top guys in Nomads are going to be a really good fit for that.
100%. And then it's I mean like the model's definitely proven from like from our previous, a lot of our previous companies working with Apricot, where it's like I mean I've had days where I've quadrupled, where I just show up to I've got 5 leads in the morning, they're on my calendar, I wake up, I know exactly what their address is. Some I actually with Apricot I never got the utility bill, but just to have that ability to walk in, when I walked in, they were like, "Oh, hey, for our solar appointment, come on in." And they were like, and I would just go in, and like there was days where like a bad day was one deal, a good day was a double, like a double deal, and then like tripling happened at least once a week, where I would sign it up, and then however, I mean, the realization rate for apricots is significantly, like, it's really bad because there's no post-sale process. There's no gifts that are given out. There's no material that's sent out. There's no text message. And because essentially what we're doing is, hey, here's this business. And at the time it was Freedom Forever. Please take care of my little customer and make sure that they're communicated with from start to finish. And it's and then in that model it was just kind of like, oh well, I'm off to the next one. And then so it was there was no real post sale process. And I hate even the term sale, because a sale is a transaction of goods, and that's when that's when it actually gets installed. That's really when it happens, because the
Yeah.
step 1 is signing the documents, step 2 is site survey.
Gotcha. So they spent a lot of their money on the appointments, but their pipeline follow through wasn't the best.
Yeah, yeah.
Sounds
And
like.
so it's but yeah, it's really, so what we do with our leads is, like, for example, this Zoom call is being recorded, is what we're able to do is, let's say I've got a new guy in the field, a new girl in the field, we'll actually like record the Zoom call, post it to we have a private YouTube page that nobody can see, and it's password protected, and then managers can kind of go in, see where the sale is going right, where it's going wrong, who went in for the manager call, what was their objections, what was the process, where do they stand, do they need to be followed up with? And then if a guy can't close it or a girl can't close it within 2 calls, it goes back to the Nomad headquarters, and we have the ability to close that on our own, because the reality is, with most solar closers, you don't want them playing that dirty follow-up game. You want the best closers in front of new people every single day, and that's why Apricot's definitely expanding, but there's just still very small in the marketplace. But the model, at least in terms of that, it definitely works. For example, my business partner and girlfriend, Autumn, in her first month, without literally any training, no closing training, she just got kind of management favor, got put on leads really quickly. She closed 22 deals in her first month. And like,
Wow.
it's just, there's zero training. Absolutely zero. And so that model is not only proven extremely effective, but that back then, everyone in Apricot, including myself, like I closed 28 deals in August, just myself. And it was my first month on leads. And I only made like 40K, but I'm like, who's going to complain? Oh, I only made 40 grand this month. And it was just like,
Yep.
so
And that's kind of our thought when we push these out at a flat rate of 400 a kilowatt. It's for sure not as good as a self-gen or anything, but it's kind of like, well, if I can go make $3,000 to $8,000, for an hour or two of my time, and it's already set up on a silver platter, like, all right, I guess, I'll take that appointment,
yeah. And
So
so it's yeah, and based on Legacy's model, if I would have been able to do that with like the 28 deals I would have put through, I mean, that would be at least a 6-figure month.
yeah.
And solar. And so if 90 to 100 grand, call it. And so it's definitely out there. I don't think too many people would complain about it. But Brian is absolutely world renowned in Google. He is and he's been him and I have been working together on a project for a lot of these leads. John, are they coming from Facebook Marketplace? I mean, Facebook to the marketplace, or YouTube,
The
or
ones
various?
that the appointments I'm buying are mainly a mix of YouTube. Like, I've been doing some solar exclusive stuff, so YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram.
Okay, got it. And then but yeah, as you know or may not know, Brian, if you could kind of touch on like what we talked about with Trey the other day, just on like what type of buyers are on marketplace and how that's essentially interstate billboards.
Yeah, the Facebook is closer to a disruption to stop you in your tracks, to say, hey, you may be interested in this, but you don't realize it. So that really requires a compelling ad, a great hook, a compelling video, versus someone actively seeking out that service. Is, I have a pain point, I'm going to go to Google and try to find someone to solve that pain point. People aren't really in that stage of the buyer psychology when on Facebook. People aren't saying, time to go find a solar panel company, let me go on Facebook. It's
Yeah,
usually time to go.
they're
They're
looking
going.
at their friends' pictures, and yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And so, not to say it doesn't work, I'm a big believer in Facebook, but I like to be lower on that sales funnel. And to me, Google brings that person lower in the sales funnel because they're actively seeking someone to fill in that gap.
Yep. Yeah. One thing next week I'm pulling the trigger on is with our new website, legacypower.com. We are getting some more organic results from that, but it's a brand new website. Like, it's just barely getting crawled by Google and getting indexed and like starting to get some nationwide traffic. And it's crazy to me. Like, we're getting people in like Wyoming that are finding it, and areas that we're not even at. And I'm like, dude, that's so weird. I never thought that like organically we would have showed up on that first
Yeah.
page there to get
Brian,
somebody to fill out our inline form.
yeah, can you share your screen, Brian, and kind of go
Huh?
through a little bit of like analytics and what like the online reputation is for Legacy Marketplace, where they stand in SEO, et cetera?
Yeah. So let's take a look. I can do a real-time audit of Legacy Solar.
No, it's Legacy Power. Yep, there
Legacy
it is.
Power here. So here, one thing I'll see is a lot of companies love big graphics, which is fine. You guys have big graphics, but always keeping in mind, Google has not come to a point where they can truly understand object identification and understand what's in an image. They don't know this is a parent with 2 kids with a laptop. They know pixel formation, they know duplicate content, and eventually they'll get to that point where they can read this. But that object identification is starting with their video product. And then after that, it'll move into images here. So there are other ways to score images, and that's a whole nother conversation, but it has to do with entity marketing. So first of all, that's great you have this. Let's take a look at your top ranking factors. So things you are, where you're missing the mark, and things I believe is SEO 101. So your H1 tag, that's not a strong enough signal, is you should have the keyword you want to rank for in your H1 tag. You should also have a semantic related keyword in your H2 tag. Instead, you have with solar. So an example is a solar panel contractor and installation. Whatever that target keyword is, that should be in your H1 tag and also match your heading tag. This is a #1 ranking factor when it comes to SEO. If you look at SEO, let me back up a little. SEO is broken up into 3 categories: technical SEO, on-page SEO, and off-page SEO. Right now, we're exclusively talking about on-page SEO. And the #1 ranking factor for on-page is this here. So really, you want to lead your title tag with the keyword you want to rank for. You don't want to lead in. If your goal is generating more traffic, you should be leading with this, residential solar power. And we measure this. Part of what we do is we'll actually do a correlation analysis to say, why are websites ranking on the first page? Is there any common denominator of the structure of the sites, the placement of everything? This is, so I'll show you what that report looks like. Is we scrape the first 100 results of Google, the first 10 pages. And this is an audit we do for most projects before we begin, as well as periodically to keep a pulse on our traction. I'm going to skip over this. It's critically important to have technical SEO on page, but I'm going to skip over this to go to our correlation analysis. And that looks like this here. And so we'll actually scan 1,300 different ranking factors. Google has 200. And what we'll do is if we see a factor that may not be a disclosed factor by Google, sometimes that's a tiebreaker. And so, for example, so right here, do you see this leading keyword? We'll actually analyze how many assets have the keyword they want to rank for leading the H1 tag versus just being in the H1 tag. And we go down this entire list. And this is our roadmap. All the answers we're looking for, we feel are within the search results. And so we'll look at search terms, the placement, leading, frequency, density, semantic related keywords. And it keeps on going. This is a long list of all the things we analyze. And then we go into this list, sentiment, award winning, top, best, that would be sentiment. Even has the word year, top, free, find. These are not ranking factors. But again, if there's a weird discrepancy or anomaly, then it's on my radar saying, okay, I'm optimizing on all of the levels, but here's something where there's a gap. Does it make sense to maybe optimize this? And that's why we collect this information. And we even analyze, is there an email address, contact page, privacy page? Really very, very granular elements. Is there an email address that has a mail link? Again, these are not ranking factors, but really it's just a data collection to help carve a roadmap on where are we, where do we want to go, and what is the gap? And that's what we're looking at right now. This is kind of like a gap analysis.
Gotcha. So so that H1 tag, was that something that's is it showing on the page with solar, or is that just something Google's seeing?
That's something so it's this right here. This is your H1 tag.
Gotcha,
Power your home with solar.
Gotcha.
I would say that is not an optimized tag to use. That's just someone used it for formatting because they want something bold and large. So an H1 tag will automatically be larger. But if an SEO person did it, I would say that they would know better to use with solar as an H1 tag. And that's just the on page. If you look at the page speed, this is now a ranking factor. Your page speed is pretty horrendous. I'll just be blunt. I don't know how else to put it. It's a 5. I mean, the worst is a 0 and you're at a 5. So to me, this is red alert. You should absolutely be investing time into your page speed on the desktop as well as mobile, because Google completely revised their index. So just as a kind of snapshot of how does this work, first, you need to be acknowledged by Google. That's being indexed. They can't rank you until you say, okay, I exist. Once you exist, they measure the signals around your website saying, okay, now where should we place your website, for what search queries, for what individuals, and what location. So part of that formula they look at is what is the user experience on a mobile device. Google completely revised their algorithm. Really, it started last year, and this rollout has been going on for about 2 or 3 years. And it's something called a mobile first index. And if you're bored, you can just type in mobile first index in Google. And there's an abundance of articles all about it, but I'll give you what it is in a nutshell. Google formerly used to come to a website and analyze how does it look on a desktop? How does a format look, each section? How does it load? Does this layout restructure? Are there any pop-up windows? Is any text hard to read? All of that is measured when looking at a desktop. Well, fast forward to today, they skip over how it looks on a desktop. They look at how it looks on a mobile device first. Then they look at the desktop. They arguably don't even look at the desktop because mobile usage has gone through the roof. Well over 50% of search queries all occur. The first touch point is a mobile device. So they want to make sure it looks good on a mobile device first. Part of that equation is page speed. It's not limited to that, but that's part of it. And that was my explanation on why this is critically, if you want to gain more visibility, this should be one of the first things, the top of your list that you need to conquer. Is a 5, and that's these section. An SEO person will know what each of these sections are. Cumulative layout, just to kind of give you what these are. So cumulative layout shift, when your page loads, are things restructuring and loading? Is there a section here where an image goes? Does it move left, move right? Or does a page load and then each item loads one at a time like a waterfall? That's a cumulative layout shift. You want that to happen. You don't want your entire layout reshifting, changing directions, and loading. As data comes in, everything's restructuring. That is what you do not want. That's part of cumulative layout shift. First contentful payment, that's like, what do I see? Are there pop-up blockers, newsletters, et cetera, so on. So each of these, if someone understands page speed optimization, should absolutely be optimized. So it goes beyond just optimization and revising your code. It has to do with your servers. Are you using a content delivery network? What is a server environment you on? Are you doing a shared hosting, VPS? Are you on AWS? And we can take a quick look at that now. Let's see. You guys are on Media Temple. So I don't know what company that is. Maybe it's GoDaddy. You know who you're hosting with by chance?
I'm not sure. Before I got hired here, Legacy had hired a company back east to like build and do all this stuff, and they manage it. And the guy that I've been talking with is very knowledgeable, and I feel like is doing a good job with things.
The
But yeah,
design is nice. Design is nice, and that's generally speaking, I usually butt heads with designers because my background is an SEO, and designers, their focus is make it look good, and not say I want to build ugly websites, but my focus is who cares how good your website looks if it's not optimized and people don't see it. You're serving to an invisible crowd. Is what sits shotgun with me is functionality, engagement, and optimization. What's in the back seat is aesthetics. And so I want to build good looking websites, but I want to make sure these good looking websites get in front of people.
yep, gotcha.
So you probably want to optimize speed on the mobile as well as the desktop. Again, this is really, the worst number is 0. So you should get an idea on how, in my opinion, critically important this is.
Gotcha.
And then just another little touch point is, and I've recognized this, is that Legacy has several different offices. Like Brian, if you could look up like Legacy Sacramento in Google, and then you'll see, Legacy Power Sacramento. There's sub offices, and some of them only have like this. I mean, that's great for reviews. But like just kind of like how the different offices and can play together, because John, do you know how many offices Legacy has, like brick and mortars, across the country?
I think we have 18 office locations. We're in 38 states, but
this should be done differently, in my opinion, as well. Part of what Google reads. So this, in my opinion, again, this is all contingent on, is SEO part of that vision and roadmap and game plan? If yes, then you should not be building your links to all of these. Are called GMB profiles. They should be not linking to your homepage. All of them. If you had one, I would say, yeah, link it to your homepage. But when you become a multi-location, it should go to a city-specific page. Why? Because that'll improve your probability of getting in front of individuals in that city. What does that look like? Well, that means going to your page, like instead of going right now, it goes to Legacy, we'll just click on it. it goes to this page here, legacypower.com. I'm suggesting instead of that, it should go to legacypower.com/Sacramento Solar Installation Company. You know, we can keyword stuff it. Why do we want to do that? Is Google ranks pages, not websites. And that's the biggest mistake I see small businesses as well as web designers, graphic designers make, is they come from the philosophies, oh, Google ranks websites. I'm like, no, actually they don't. They rank pages. So think of every page as a lottery ticket, an opportunity to get in front of your end user. If we have a hyper-focused page, then we can build more signals around it. And the signal I want to build is schema markup. This is also something you should be implementing across all of your pages. This is a level of code that only Google reads. It's a nonprofit organization, but in my opinion, it's become a puppet of Google. So you can actually mark up certain areas of your website. I'll give you an example. You know, there's a whole directory of multiple different schemas. So it's not limited to the examples I'm going to give you, but here are a few examples. If you had hours of operation on your website and just say Monday through Friday, 9 to 4 p.m. I know what it is, you know what it is, but does Google, a machine learning algorithm, when they come across that information, do they know these are hours of operation? They can build a technology to say, okay, well, if it has these conditions, it's probably hours of operation. But another layer is you can add schema markup saying, hey, this is hours of operation. It's a level of code, again, only search engines read. So that way, if you have hours of operation, I know what this is. If you have a location, a street address, Google reads that street address and then has another confirmation saying, hey, schema markup confirms this address is actually located in this area, in this city, in this state, and it's a solar company. Other examples of what schema markup does. If I just did steak recipe, you can create something called rich snippet. Do you see this? This only populates because a website is properly marked up with schema. Do you see these where there's thumbnail images, star ratings? This only populates because this website is marked up with schema. Do you see this? People also ask, this is populating because the website is marked up with FAQ schema. So schema has multiple different categories. Not only will it improve your search engine visibility, but it'll increase your click-through rate because you're creating more real estate. You're creating a listing that stands out more, whether it's an image here, star ratings, location extensions, site link extensions. It all starts with schema markup. Which, by the way, schema markup, it doesn't mean you will get all of these features. It's a request. Google will then come across your website, analyze its signals, run its machine learning algorithm and say, here are the schema markup. Does it make sense to populate star ratings next to this for this particular search query? And that's why you should never, ever assume what you see is what everyone else sees, because everybody's getting a potentially unique user experience.
Gotcha.
That was SEO in a nutshell. I mean, we could keep on going because that's just on page. You probably need you definitely need to improve your off page, your link building. You definitely need to interlink your content. That's called siloing. I would have stronger call to actions. I would increase your phone number size, change the color, have better contrast. I would expand your navigation system. I would add a site link system at the very bottom. I could keep on going. It's not a bad looking website. You know, I'm only attacking it from the perspective of search engine optimization.
Gotcha. Well, yeah, we've got a company that is I mean, it's a work in progress, right? We rushed to get it out just to make sure that Doug and Luke, the money they were paying, that a new website got out there. But yeah, they're working on all that stuff, and I'll definitely bring a lot of these things to their attention to have them keep optimizing it.
Yeah, John, I'll just post this video to a private YouTube channel and then just send you a copy of it.
Oh, sweet. Yeah, that would be awesome.
Yeah, because but yeah, aside from that, because like I've been learning from Brian for years now, and it's just like it to me. I mean, it just makes sense knowing that everything is blockchain coded, all the way back to like individual search and Google profiles. Everyone that logs in with a Gmail or whatever has a digital avatar, so to speak, and so knowing, I mean, we can even capture these people through Google. And then, as most people know, once you Google solar companies, that's probably when you're going to see these Facebook ads. So that's when we have the chance to retarget. And not to mention, that is also an opportunity. And Brian, you can correct me if I'm wrong, as to really just impress upon them and to have actual legacy like branded ads and actually bring people to our company, versus where a lot of the marketing in this industry is Sacramento Clean Energy Program now gives solar for $0 out of pocket. And then a legacy rep shows up and they're like, wait, who are you? I thought you were with Sacramento City or something. And so
Mhm.
it's a lot of shady marketing out there. But I mean, nobody except for maybe Tesla, but they don't even have solar advisors, have actually like done custom ads to their individual brand, which is brand awareness, which is, as Brian has always told me, the first one to marketplace is going to be the one that dominates. For example, Lowe's and Home Depot.
And the
Yeah.
remarketing helps with forefront of mind, is because I don't think solar is necessarily an impulsive purchase. I don't see a solar and first one I come across saying, oh, I'm signing up. I'm sure there's a segment of people that do that, but I'm going to assume the majority of people do not do that. And they're usually, it's a big purchase, big decision. They'll probably talk to more than one company. They'll probably need more than one day to pull the trigger. They'll probably talk to their significant other, parent. They want to marinate on it. So that gap of time of when you were introduced to that brand versus them pulling the trigger, there may be days, or there may be weeks, there may be months. Maybe they're waiting for a paycheck. Maybe they're waiting to do something else. Who knows what the reason is, but that's the majority of user behavior. Approximately 93 to 97% of users, when they enter a website, they leave, they disengage. Kids crying, dinner's ready, phone's ringing, I'm surfing, whatever it is. We live in an ADD nation where we're easily distracted, where the average attention span on a website is 1 minute and 30 seconds. You have 7 seconds to create a hook to get to that finish line of 1 minute and 30 seconds, but you can pull someone back into that middle of the sales funnel. Again, that's the consideration desire phase, not the awareness. They've already come to your brand, they leave, kids crying, dinner's ready, I'm on my way out the door. Now what happens? Well, next day or that evening, that night, whatever, I want to keep my brand in front of you because you've always come in contact with me. And that's remarketing, keeping your brand forefront of mind. If I see your brand every single day when I am ready to pull the trigger on solar, I think of you first, because either I'm consciously or subconsciously always engaging with your brand through all of these remarketing ads. And that's why I like remarketing. If you get a testimonial video, that would be the gold standard of remarketing, because not only am I just reminding you that, hey, I exist, remember you came in contact with me, that becomes a, hey, remember when you talked to me? By the way, here's a trust credential, here's social proof. It'll elevate your clout and credibility. So it's a reminder system plus elevation of trust.
Cool.
Yeah. And go ahead, John.
Oh, I was gonna say, Brian, you're super knowledgeable on this, man. I appreciate the feedback.
Sure. This is my life. I don't know any other life but this. I've been doing it since 2001. So it's the passion. It's what pays the bills, and I actually love it. It's a very interesting world to me. The reasons I love it are also reasons I hate it. It's always changing. So you figure things out, and then it's like, all right, not necessarily back to the drawing board, but then we have to run these single variant tests, reverse engineer. We start reading their patents, but the good feeling is I figured it out again. The shitty feeling is like, oh God, it changed again. But that creates a barrier to entry, right? It makes me not fear competition, because you got to put in the work to know what's going on. It's not a set it and forget it cookie cutter approach. It's always changing. It's a very dynamic marketplace.
Yeah, if you could, Brian, could you touch just a little bit about the Google reviews and just kind of like how the authentication, because I know that just the simple, like not simple-minded approach, but a lot of homeowners, they're oh, I got to do my research, is Googling your website and then looking at whatever reviews are there, and then like just literally seeing either a 5-star review, 4.5-star review. Sunrun has like a 2 point something star review. And then it's just, but then again, they're a massive company, but it's just kind of like how like little research people do when they need to think about it, and how like oftentimes that can either sway, make or break a deal, especially once the customer's left the home, or once the solar advisor's left the home. They're
Sure.
like, hey, I need to do my research. And then they just Google your name, and then they look at the reviews and kind of how that can work into things.
Yep. So, what stands out on this page? If you were to pick a business here, what would be your first choice? More often, it's the person with the most reviews. And it's the person with the most reviews in the highest amount, 4.6. Well, this is our client. And I know this is being recorded, but hopefully it doesn't leave here and is confidential. But between you and I, we created 80% of these reviews. It was us. Perception is reality. We originally created this service because we noticed that when you look at these reviews, they started categorizing and scraping as well as crawling the review content. because you see this all to go, happy hour. And that made me perk my ears. Like, why are they creating these words here? Well, obviously Google's reading this content because that's the only way they can create this categorization. And they're choosing these words here based on the content here. So that's a signal. So what if I can control the narrative? Then I can control the signal of how Google's potentially perceives this brand. The words I use are done through keyword research and through something called Google's natural language processor. And if you're bored, you can play with it. Just Google NLP, and they have an API connection, which is what we use, but they have a demo where you can start understanding the content I have. How does Google actually read it? How do they score it? I mean, we could just do, let's just do your website as an example. How are they reading your content? And so besides semantics and LSI, which is latent semantic indexing, you need to be focused on entities. So let's take, I'll bring more clarity just by highlighting this. This is what entities are. And this should be potentially words you use within your reviews. That's kind of what I'm getting at. Now, that's hard to do to a user, right? To ask a customer saying, hey, leave me a review. By the way, can you use these certain words? Can you use these certain entities? I mean, if it's a good review, they'll just do it without them realizing it. But if we can be more strategic and starting to control that narrative, then we can be more impactful on how these reviews increase your rankings. And these are what entities are. There's a specific category here called entities, and you'll see certain words are highlighted. And out of the words highlighted, certain ones are colored in. These are what Google defines as being an entity, a homeowner, nation. Well, there are certain entities always associated with certain industries. So solar has a certain set of entities associated with it. Plumbers have a certain word of entities associated with it. Electrician, the list keeps on going. It's almost the DNA and pattern of certain industries will have a certain pattern of keywords and entities in relation to it. And I think I gave this example last time, but a quick way of getting what are those words is just type in solar contractor, right? What are the entities, or actually in this case, what are the semantic related keywords? LSI, which is an acronym for latent semantic indexing. That's saying with the word without using the word. And if you said, what is that? Just type in your seed root keyword here. And again, this is a do-it-yourself solution. You can click on images. And again, Google's populating. Oh, did they get rid of it? That'd be crazy. Oh, here we go. So solar, see these words? Energy, sun, panel, power, home. This is all auto-populated. This is Google's machine learning algorithm. But remember, you and I are humans. So definition by the human definition of what is LSI, again, latent semantic indexing, I play the same game all the time. And I can't remember if I did this last time with you, and feel free to stop me if I did. If I said these next set of words, try to guess the industry, occupation, or niche I may be referring to. If I said child support, separation, alimony, lawsuit, what occupation, person, individual, or category of career could be using those words? Well, lawsuit, that makes me think lawyer. Child support, okay, that's probably a divorce lawyer. Alimony, definitely a divorce lawyer. A personal injury lawyer isn't saying alimony, child support, but a divorce lawyer is. That's what LSI is. Try to say the word without using the word. Very similar to what entities are, because there are always certain words associated with other words. So now that we know what it is by human definition, always keeping in mind, Google's not a human, it's a machine learning algorithm. Algorithm just means formula, math. And so it looks up those patterns and says, solar, here are the LSI words. But you need to use your best judgment because it's a machine learning algorithm, not a human. So for instance, there's India here. I would not include the word India in your review, although it has it here, because again, this is not a perfect system. It's just a mathematical equation to see what the patterns are. But this is still a do-it-yourself solution where you can scan here. And if you're writing a piece of content, if you're writing different blog topics, if you're writing reviews, responding to reviews, these are the words you want to potentially include within your responses, all of these. And that's why we started creating the reviews, because we can start doing that. Ideally, you're responding to every single one of these reviews. The end result, well, here's an extreme example. It's depending on the locale, there's a lot of factors, but this became a perfect storm situation where it's the only signal we're building now for some clients. And the result is first page rankings. See, so the Dentist Baton Rouge, this is our client here, Tiger Smile Dental. Folk doubled down on review generation. They're 4.9. And by the way, they're in the #1 position for Dentist Baton Rouge, generating them, over $2 million in revenue. So that's why we started building these reviews. That's the original reason we started creating it. The side effect is, well, think about it. If I see all these reviews, higher click-through rate, improved clout, you become better than the next person. You're on the short list. Because if I see 271 reviews, 1,030, this person has more reviews, but this one has a higher review. is you're going to be on the short list, and eventually we'll catch up to these people because we have a review publishing plan for these assets. So that's why we started creating the reviews, is for rankings, increased click-through rate, and elevated perception of your brand. Trust.
Gotcha. Yeah, and so on all those local business Google and Yelp pages, so when I got hired on, like that part's kind of a mess because a lot of those are actually claimed and owned by reps that don't even work with legacy anymore. So on the leadership call, yeah, 2 weeks ago, we just kind of talked about, said, hey, if you care about your perception in your local market, you want to improve it, like contact John, and let's go dive into it and work on it. So far I've had two different groups of managers, contact me to go fix it.
Yeah, I mean, if we can get any existing assets, that's ideal. But another trick we have, part of what we do is we reverse engineer, figure out what are the signals. And then the next step, that's just knowing what to do now, the execution plan. How do we build the signals? And a lot of that may include a human, but if we can't get a person, like reviews, okay, we know we need to build reviews. Now, how do we get the person to leave review? Well, that's a high gap and barrier to entry and big ask for some people. So we said, well, can we create the reviews ourselves? Yeah, we can. So we asked that same question with locations. We need access to a website. We need an address. Well, is there a way to create these locations without actually having an address? To answer your question, we figured it out. We can build as many of these as we want in any city we want to make it look like you're in a location without actually being there.
Gotcha. And we have 18 actual locations that we're working on trying to optimize those, but I'm spread thin. I'm just one guy, and I'm running a marketplace and trying to manage launching this website and optimizing it. So it's not my top priority, but the two areas that have reached out to me, we've already got them from 1 star on Google and Yelp up to 4 stars, which is it's a step in the right direction.
Yeah. I mean, I ideally you're doing that regularly because they measure frequency of publishing. Are you doing it just 1 month and stopping? Are you doing it every month? Is it ramping up? Is velocity increasing? Is it correlated to your traffic levels? And the list keeps on going.
Yeah, and we just barely started like 2 weeks ago. So yeah, we've got to stay on top of that and make sure we're doing it to give the perception that Legacy is a good company, that they're connected to their customers. That, yeah, because I agree. Like in a perfect world, all of these local pages are going to have glowing reviews and good content around Legacy. But there's it all comes down to the CFO of how much money I have to spend and how much they're caring about making that happen right now.
Yeah.
But it's moving, it's trending in a good direction. So those are all things in the vision and things that we definitely want to accomplish in the long run.
Mm-hmm. Yep, makes sense.
And so as for just like the online reputation and whatnot of Legacy moving forward, I know that is extremely important, especially in terms of SEO. The best time to plant a tree was yesterday. The second best time is to plant today. So that's one aspect. But is to, I guess, circle back around, because all of those things are important for Legacy moving forward. But to circle around to advertisement space and to touch on like actually doing online lead generation and campaigns and following up. How many clients do you have, John, like in the marketplace that produce leads?
I've probably used 8 to 10 different lead sources.
Got it. And is there like kind of a monthly budget with some of those projects? I know you said you plan on kind of launching like within Canvas and kind of integrating marketplace and Canvas. Let's just say there's 2,000 reps within Legacy that are getting paid. They understand the system. They want to invest money. Is there a priority of like, let's just say someone sends $1,000 to the marketplace or $5,000 to the marketplace? like kind of what that looks like as to where do those dollars go, or do they go to just solar exclusive, or like I know Seth has a connect with Prospect Bacon, who's a really good solar lead generation company, but all I believe they use is Facebook. But is there kind of an allocation or priority of those dollars?
Yeah, there's not so much a budget. It just kind of ebbs and flows with supply and or with demand, I guess. Really, it's as we're getting in these lead orders, we always want to be able to fill on those, and we we're just taking the orders in, collecting payment from the reps, and then just making sure I've got enough in the hopper to fill those orders. But that whole program's winding down and going away as we try to generate our own appointments. We're going to get away from using these third party companies and want to create a lot of the content ourselves.
Yeah, 100%. And so, um, as when you say like just like getting away from the third parties, so like basically only giving legacy leads to legacy reps.
Yeah.
Okay, got
and,
it.
and having and having getting away from using the third party companies like Prospect Bake and Solar Exclusive, things like that. Like, we want to stop doing that, creating our own content, creating our own leads, cultivating those into appointments, and then sending those out to the field.
And as far as like a marketing and remarketing system slash structure slash call center, let's just say if I go to legacypower.com and actually fill that lead out, that form out, like who's in charge, I guess, of the legacy call center that schedules that, and then where do those leads go out to, et cetera.
Yeah, so ultimately I manage everything, but there's a guy named George Garcia that's running the call center. So he'll receive that in our CRM, call or have his setters call, cultivate that into an appointment, and then the data lives in Marketplace, but through the API, it's going to get pushed into Canvas, and that's where, like, you are a rep in the field, they're just going to get a text notification, and it's going to say you have a new appointment tomorrow at 11:30. And they'll click on it, and it'll have all the data in there, but it will live and exist in Canvas.
Got it. And then is there is there like a call recording? Do you guys have a system set up to call? Because ideally, from a representative side, let's just say somebody fills out a lead. It's I'm in Louisiana right now. It's a Louisiana lead once Titan opens here, and then that they fill out their information, they type it in. Hopefully, the call center can be incentivized to even if it's commission only for the call center or hourly, whatever, incentivize some way to get the utility bill and to do like kind of basic discovery, send the notes over, and then even have a recording of the call so I can listen to the 2-minute phone call that Susie in the call center had with the customer, so I can hear the customer, hear the notes, hear some of the questions, and then be able to have that data so I can, as a rep, instead of just because at Apricot, I was just given an address and a name. And like that's good, but now I'm showing up kind of disadvantaged to the home. I didn't know what they clicked on, what they saw, what they were exposed to, what the conversation would looked like. And a lot of the ads back then were like free solar program, get rid of your bill. Well, that's technically that can like be true in a certain sense. I've had people say, dude, if this is not free, I'm not doing it. And I didn't even know, kind of showing up to the appointment, what that looked like, what the previous conversation was, and kind of some of those discovery questions. Uh,
Yeah, great question. So currently it's these guys are virtual call center people, so it's just pushing to their cell phone, so we're not recording it. But the call center technology we use is called Zapier, and it does have the ability to record those calls. So yeah, that's something I think we could take a look at and try to implement in the future, because I agree, as the closer, it'll be nice to do that. We are incentivizing them to get the utility bill. And George and his team are good. They've spent extensive time on the doors. They're they're top closers. These are guys that have gone on that, big check Friday thing. Like
Yeah.
they're really, really good at solar. So that's why Doug Robinson and I selected them. Is they're not just setters in like India or the Philippines or somewhere. Like they're really, really knowledgeable of solar and setting up a good appointment. But dude, that is a good idea. I like the idea of trying to record a, trying to think how we post that though through the API. I might
Any
just have to like
idea?
have a hyperlink or something that they could click on and listen to the call.
Yeah, I'd like to look at the asks and we can try to brainstorm, see if we can connect these dots. I feel like we're above average at figuring things out.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, and so I mean, there's definitely I see the value in that of having really, I mean, the abundance of leads is a good thing because is that's ultimately my position, and just like whether it's from an ignorance perspective or not, initially was just like if someone knows how to sell solar, they should just be doing that instead of prospecting, because back in the day they used to have horses to get from point A to point B. Now that there's tools and vehicles put in place, digital door knocking, tapping into the phones. Most people hate door knockers because they were just watching Netflix, hanging out with the kids. They just got home from a stressful day, and then like now they're like, oh, this guy's going to sell me on something. And so the digital door knocking is actually tapping them into the phone, reverse engineering the psychology to where they're reaching out to the solar company as opposed to me cornering you in your house and then introducing myself and then trying to set something up. And if done correctly, I mean, like that you could never ever get that I'm no longer interested, or I'm not interested, because they reached out to us. They've pivoted that psychology. They've contacted us. They're looking for us, whether it's through Solar Exclusive, through this. And so and it gives the closer that confidence that, hey, like it seems like you've already identified the problem. You've already identified that your utility bill is going to continuously get bigger, not just because of the rates, because of more people going solar, but just the inflation of the US dollar. I mean, in 1956, the average utility bill was $7 a month. And so if it went up 100% since then, it would be $14 a month. 200% since then, compounded, be $28. And so it's just there's obviously a huge problem. Most homeowners see it, they understand it. There's a slight discrepancy from the mainstream media person or mainstream homeowner that obviously wants to get rid of their utility bill, but simultaneously thinks of solar as some massive purchase with a down payment, like the solar industry started in the early 2000s, where yeah, you'll save money, but we need 10 grand up front because there's no financing available. And so all these different factors that come into it, leads are 100% the future. And I can tell you every single rep in legacy would be fine with a $2, $3, $4,000 commission, a 50-50 split, or however that dials out. I mean, because I mean, they have Apricot's done a fair amount of volume for the amount of reps they've had with, and they were getting $1,000 to $2,000 commissions. And it's like, I mean, and people were like, hell yeah, I didn't even have to knock for that. And like
Yeah, yeah.
generally excited. So, I mean, in my eyes, just the more lead sources, the better. If I'm good at closing solar, I don't want to door knock. Not that there's anything against it. That is a skill that can never be taken away. But the more lead sources, the more opportunities available. I mean, people in theory, like a good closer virtually should be able to close 30 to 40 a month easily, just that one person, if they have the appointments. And if somebody doesn't sit down, instead of like trying to retarget and recall that person, that should kind of go back to the call center, have that rebooked, and or just have the people reaching out to do that. And there is a way, and I've kind of designed the structure for it, is commission only calling, $1 per call or X amount per appointment, and then just to recycle and refunnel through these leads. But really, at the end of the day, I think the biggest bottleneck so far in the nomads is not training, is not getting quality people, but is, hey, how can I get these people that literally know their stuff and are signed off by management in front of new leads each day, and or at least if it's 2 to 3 a week, 5 a week, etc. And it's the I guess in a way is the financee as to who can put that money at scale into the space. Obviously, see a return on their investment, but if you run the like people get excited about a 10% on their money a year, 15% or 20% return on their money in a year. With solar, you're getting a 15, 20, 30, 40, 50, sometimes 100 to 200, 300% return on your money in 60 days once it's installed. And so and both Brian and I are working on reverse engineering the post sale process to make sure that a lot of these deals are getting actually installed. And then that lead, let's say, I mean, the cost per appointment when it comes down to, let's just say, hey, if Danny closes at 1 out of 5 people he talks to, it only costs us $125 to book an appointment for Legacy Marketplace, maybe less, maybe more. And then, so that's $500 out of pocket for Legacy. What does that look like at scale? Because if Danny can get an install out of talking to 1 out of 5 homeowners, then we just spent $500 to make 50% of that commission. And then, so now it comes down to a factor of how can we make sure that these deals get installed? And how can we get in front of more clients? And then once again, tap rooting into those referrals. I know Legacy will obviously make their money on the back end as well, just from like referrals. And so kind of Legacy's mastered and built almost $1 billion business off of door knocking, but is how to integrate that into the digital door knocking space. And personally, I know Brian is the go-to guy for that, but it is kind of like how can we bring Legacy into the digital space, so to speak?
I could be maybe gas on the fire because we also have programs where we can trigger sequences by people visiting your website, triggering a postcard to go to that person's address by tapping into their GPS locator on their browser. And so maybe walking to that door knock, if they see a postcard, then there's existing brand recognition. That's a potential. I wouldn't say that's a first step, but that's what else can we do? What else can we do with the existing activities you're doing now to supplement it?
Gotcha. Well, cool.
And I'm sorry to cut you off. I got to run to my next meeting, but it was great chatting. And Danny, can you and I maybe catch up a little bit later today?
100%, man.
Thanks a lot, y'all. Appreciate it.
Hey, sounds good. I gotta jump off too. So
Appreciate the chat. We'll be in touch.
Good chatting with you guys. Have a good rest of your day. We'll see ya.
Thanks.
All righty.
Bye.
You're on now.